Yeah, to me, the work is in about four different sections, main sections. And as I mentioned earlier, the first section sort of represents this sort of beautiful, bright, energetic morning. And so the material that I came up with to express that was this very dance-like staccato, quasi-Stravinsky kind of music, this sort of bright ba 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 dum ba 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 da ba, that kind of thing, very syncopated and very dance-like. And in the upper half of the register, there's almost not a single note below middle C, except every now and then something does. But for the most part, it's way up in the upper half of the register. And and I was inspired by just that the feeling. What's that feeling on that perfect morning for a sail? And so that inspired that music.
And I think one of the most interesting things to me in putting that together, and of course this was even before I really had totally made the association with sailing, but it was in the back of my mind because I'd read the preface that you had put together. But just that level of energy that needs to be present. And I remember at one point telling the ensemble that I want you to make me worry that you're going to rush. Don't you dare.
That's a great way
Don't
to
you
put it.
dare, but I want there to be this sense of eagerness and vitality and drive, and that the accents and all the markings have to be, I think, exaggerated just a little bit. It can't just hover.
That's right.
It's got to have some direction and fire in it, if you will.
That's a perfect thing to say. I want you to make me think you're going to rush, because that's how you have to think. That piece that beginning, you have to think that way all the time. You can't think this way.
Yes, absolutely.
It's got to move forward. And the accents, without the accents, it wouldn't work. The accents make or break this section here, I think.
I couldn't agree more.
And the staccatos, too, though. It's a very dry kind of staccato in this opening section.
True.
Yeah, and a little attitude. It's a little bit of an attitude that has to be there as well.
Well, all sailors have attitudes, so you go ahead and get that
that's
on
true.
the table.
But the way you play, or you can
Boring.
Yeah, it's got to have that sort of attitude.
Certainly.
It's not just a dotted eighth sixteenth. It's a certain kind of dotted eighth sixteenth, which is driving and forward thinking. Yeah, and then the second section, after it moves out of this, it goes into what seems as though it's going to be just a completely different kind of music, a very lyrical section with the horns leading it, and the euphonium, da, da, dee, da. So you've got this very lyrical, I'm just imagining a calm sail. We're out there and you're just sailing now. But there are all these reminders. So, dee, da, dee, da, bum, 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 bee, bum, bee, bum, bee. That sort of stuff in the background is still there. So the energy is still there, but it just, this sort of calmer aspect of sailing. Just the boat is launched out and you're going. And so that middle section, yes, it's contrasting, but it hasn't left entirely the energy of the first section.
Right. And I think, at least to us, one of the big challenges on that was it's easy to want to over-emote that and all of a sudden start to become a little bit rubato, and you can't because all that drive is there. Yeah. And it's kind of like, again, like a sailboat under sail with the wind pushing the boat with all its energy. It doesn't lunge along. It goes. And it continues to go. But the notion of the fact that lyrical line that you have going there still has to be incredibly rhythmic. Yeah. And the vitality and beauty of it comes not through playing around with the tempo, but rather how you shape those phrases with the dynamics to give it musical interest through the line, not through trying to change things within it to make it have the music's there. It's got to flow, it's got to sing, and then the woodwinds just kind of take a ride on the top of that and keep it going.
Yes. That's a lot of the dynamics of the lyrical theme of this kind of thing, where it comes up and it comes back down again, the idea of swells of the waves. And your band is doing it so beautifully, this idea of keeping it moving. So you've done a great job with that. I think the motor that keeps coming and going in the mostly woodwinds and the mallets helps to keep reminding the band this is still moving. You can't just be lyrical. That motor is constantly reminding them.
Absolutely.
And you've done a good job of sort of...
Well, thank you.
And then it moves to an even... You would think after this slower lyrical section that it would now maybe pick up again, but I move in to an even quieter, slower, more private place, if you will. And I'm imagining, because I've been on your boat and on our friend Tom Lee's boat on the Pacific Ocean. Sometimes even on the Pacific Ocean, you can get that kind of weather where there's nothing. The water is almost like glass, even on the Pacific Ocean. And that's when you just, let's have something to eat now. We're not moving very fast. And so everything just kind of stops. And it's just this bubbly, static accompaniment. The flute's doing the perfect fourth, alternating. And then these solos happen. So it's an opportunity for these very, to me, kind of heartfelt, soulful, and even spiritual solos. There's a spiritual side to sailing to me, and I'm just trying to capture that. And it gets a little bit bluesy, but most importantly, it's very private. Whereas the beginning is very public, now we're in a place that's very private, as though you're almost just expressing something for yourself. And that's what that middle section's about. And I know it's probably the most difficult section in the whole work, but to me, it's the heart and the soul of the whole work as well.
Well, it creates that moment of calm that creates the energy for the opening and the ending of the piece. Without that middle section in there, you're just shouting at the listener from beginning to end. Right. Interesting, as I got into it, what I began to think about, you're talking about it's calm and settled. I think about it as more as I'm an anchor. Mm-hmm. And there's those magic times that the sun's just kind of playing on the top of the water just a little bit. Yeah. And
the bubbly accompaniments doing that. Yeah.
Exactly. And the solos are just those little intersperse of beauty and calmness and being at peace. Mm-hmm. That's a part of that kind of the music. And I'm not saying this just about this piece, but almost any piece. I'm always personally looking for some kind of a human connection, not just a musical connection, but a human connection that actually gets at what the music represents to me. It doesn't have to represent that to other people necessarily, but it's what puts my mind in the right place to explore the depth that I think's there. So I always try to think in that section about being calm and at anchor. Mm-hmm. And at peace with myself and at peace with nature as we go through that section. But it is a challenge to keep that moving. I guess all the way through the piece, one of the biggest challenges is that with the exception of the one little retard in the oboe solo, there's no place that the tempo fluctuates, whatever tempo you've put into place. Even the modulation back into the allegro section, there's no hesitation for that. It just goes from 3 into 2, and boom, you're off again at sail. Right. So that was a big challenge, I think, throughout, was just to remember that the momentum must be there at all times for the music to really have its magic. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I sneak out of that section through a metric modulation.
Right.
That sort of, so the triplet becomes the eighth, and we're back at the original tempo without really knowing it at first, because I just wanted this idea of just a transition that's almost unnoticeable, but then you're starting to hear all this material come back, and you realize, oh, the anchor, as your metaphor, to use your metaphor, the anchor has been pulled up, and we're back sailing again here. Mm-hmm. And it all just goes back to that same feeling again of sailing. The lyrical theme comes back again. And the little dancing things that are accompanying the lyrical theme all come back. And it's starting to build. The difference this time is it's starting to build to something brand new. So we go through the lyrical theme and then back to some of the dancing music, the return of that. And then something really special happens, and that's this coda where the horns lead it with this sort of bum, bum, ba, ba. These dyads, these 2-note chords, in rising diatonic steps that lead us to a whole different place. And for me, it kind of represents this sort of triumphant return to the dock, to dock the boat. You've had a wonderful day and you're returning now. And they represent that to me there. And lots of, if there's new material, this is where it happens. Just all kinds of little new things happen here, but also some of the old things. Mm-hmm. But I just needed to take the piece. I didn't want to just return to the material at the beginning. It had to transcend that, and I had to sort of raise the bar and go to some place that was more powerful, more triumphant, more joyful. Just the word "more" came to my mind a lot, and that's sort of what the coda is trying to do.
And it does it very well. I think one of the biggest challenges musically in rehearsing the piece on that section is to pace yourself If you get too big too soon, when that final big crunch happens, about all you can do is let your eyes get bigger. There's no more sound to deal with. So I think you have to really think about pacing that last 2 minutes of the piece to make sure that the real arrival points occur where they need to be, and that you haven't gotten there too soon.
That's right. Yeah, because it's long lasting, and you have to pace it. That's absolutely true.
But that's a magic moment when the horns come in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun to be in front of a group when that happens.
Yeah.
That's a lot of.
I was just thinking,
energy.
you must enjoy conducting this spot right here. Last night, the first time I'd heard it, and when that, not on the horns, but when that low note comes in underneath him, I looked right at you and I thought, he must be having fun right now. It just looks like you were.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. So in the end, the piece presents itself pretty much as an arch form, because you've got this bright dance-like energy, then the lyricism, that's A, B, and then the heart, the C section, where it's static, and then the lyricism comes back to B, and then back to the A, the dance. So A, B, C, B, A. Just a straight arch form, which is exactly what you do when you're sailing. You're going out, and you're coming back again. And so that sense of the arch form is there, except that I add this coda.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I heard it for the first time last night, and I'm just delighted with what you've done with it, and can't wait for the premiere tonight.
Well, it's been an exciting journey for us to put it together, and it's been fun to watch the group grow with the piece. I think that's true with any piece of music that you or I do. And that the fact that first, quite candidly, some of the people were not quite sold on it at the beginning. But I've had a lot of pieces of music you have to kind of get into and dig with and start to realize the depth and the energy and the beauty that's there. But I'll guarantee at this point, Austin Symphonic Band has taken ownership of that piece. They may be resentful if somebody else plays it. I don't know about that.
Well, I couldn't ask for more. It's just wonderful.